Hi, Tato, how are you?
Well, in yourself, can you?
I'm good, thank you. So I was told by one of our community members last time that everybody that I speak to, I always ask them about the weather, which is a typical South African thing. So I'm not going to ask you about the weather today. I'm just going
Well, I can
to,
tell you about the weather. I've been in three towns over the last 3 days, so
yeah,
it's sunny skies all over Africa.
all over Africa. That's awesome. Okay, so Tato, let's get right into it because I've got a couple of questions to ask. So the first is, so apparently a little bird told me you need to tell us a story about you and your two friends and the adventure that you went on. Apparently, I don't know, you guys tried to what, start a band or you started a business. I'm not sure, but
Oh,
you
no,
tell us.
no. So, I've got no musical bone in me, so we can scrap out the band. So,
Yeah.
but it was really a story about three young boys who started varsity together.
Hmm,
Boys who had similar aspirations coming into varsity,
hmm,
but had different starting positions in life.
hmm.
And I guess it speaks much more philosophically to life that, we all almost want similar things, but where we're starting from is always different,
Yeah.
right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that we're all heading to the same destination. So
Yeah.
these three young boys started varsity together. One came from Parktown Boys, and he had a very stable sort of upbringing, and went into varsity from coming from a very comfortable background, if I can put it that way.
Yeah.
And then we had these two other boys, myself being one of them, who came from families that maybe did not have that much growing up as well, but had aspirations to be those people within their families that can really maybe move their financial circumstances of their families forward.
Yeah.
And so these three boys go into varsity together, and they've got ambitions of taking over the stock exchange. They're going, no, 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 they're going to be the best investment brokers out there, and they really understand stocks. And so they go in and join this platform around investments that
Mhm.
has taken place last year at this stage,
Mhm.
with the aspiration to win a prize money at the end and be the best investors the world has ever seen. And of course, that didn't happen.
Okay. Ish.
So nothing of the sort happened. They failed dismally in their ventures. But fast forwarding in life, the
Yeah.
one ended up actually being a great at investment. So he's a principal of fund.
Okay.
And the other one, to the music story, that look, he's got his hand at DJing and music. So he took the music route and he's still in the music route.
Oh,
And
wow.
of
Okay.
course, then you've got myself who I played investment, nor can I sing. So
Yeah.
I sell cars for a living.
Thank you so much for
It's
living.
the story of the three young boys, I guess.
Love that story. That's a little bit
Yeah.
about who you are, right? And the journey that you've been on.
Correct.
Yeah. So,
Correct. Yeah.
Tato, I
Yeah.
think,
Ah,
having listened, go for it.
so the journey that you took is never what you and then your journey is never to take a few steps back in life to get to where you need to go. And
Mhm.
that was really the essence of it to go. Look, we find ourselves where we are today in automotive, having a fantastic job, doing what I love every single day.
Yeah.
But when I started in university, I couldn't imagine it looking like this. But when you take a few, when you look 16, 18 years later, you go, you actually got to do what you wanted, just in a different shade of form.
Yeah. Very, very true. Cool. So I think,
Mm.
you've risen to leadership levels quite quickly and quite young. What would you say the role of mentorship played in your role, in your journey to becoming a leader?
I think we we misunderstand what mentorship means
Mm,
uh, in a person's personal development and growth.
mhm,
When I started out working, the
mhm.
person I aspired to and I loved the most, and I still got a fond appreciation of him, is Dr. Rolkos.
Okay.
And I loved reading. I fell in love with his book on Ubuntu as a leadership concept
Okay.
growing up, and I still read it from time to time.
Yeah.
And I always thought that to be the better version of myself, I need people like him to mentor me. In fact, at one stage, I actually approached him. I went to his office, I go, would you be willing to consider this? And at that stage, he just had so much going on in his personal space.
Yeah.
And he said, look, he doesn't have the capacity to do it. And that's how we almost try and define mentorship
Mm,
in corporate South Africa. You need someone like that.
yeah.
But I look back at what has helped me over the years. It has actually been people at home.
People at home.
So, mentorship, we shouldn't define it as having the most successful person in the career telling you how they done it and you trying to learn from them. We
Mm-hmm.
can learn from anybody. The person I learned the most from is my own father. And he was neither, he doesn't have a degree, he never had a fancy job, was never in corporate, was never an exec, none of those things. But till today, if I have a challenge in the workplace, I'm able to speak to him around it and get some guidance, because a lot of the things that we struggle with is not really the technical things in nature,
True.
but it's about that ability to have a resilient one, about the ability to manage
True.
conflicts, ability to navigate complex interpersonal sort
Yeah.
of type
Yeah.
challenges. And you'll be surprised that instead of looking for those solutions amongst people that we think are successful, you can actually find the solutions at home as well. So I think we rethink how we look at mentorship.
Yeah. Sure. That's very interesting. I'd actually never looked at it that way.
Mhm.
Very, very
Yep.
interesting. Okay. All right. So that's on mentorship. And Tato, obviously, you mentioned the journey to leadership and even just being a leader is never a bed of roses. So share with
Yes.
us some of the setbacks that you've had to deal with and how have you dealt with those?
So setbacks are part of life.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's one thing you must accept,
Yeah.
that we all have a story to tell.
Yeah.
No story is greater or less than the next.
Yeah.
Everyone has challenges that they experience in their day to day, either in the workplace or at home. And no matter how great you think you are, you will get things wrong.
Yeah. And
Everybody gets it
that's
wrong at
human
a point
nature,
in time.
right? Yeah.
So, what I have personally learned over the last few years is to be kinder to oneself.
Mm.
You need to be kind to yourself, but still hold yourself accountable. Now, there's a delicate balance here in that we can
Yeah.
always be kind to ourselves and forgiving ourselves, and then draw complacency in there as well.
Yeah.
So it's about this careful balance around keeping yourself accountable, pushing yourself harder, but also being kind and forgiving on yourself, especially if you are young and you've got lofty ambitions and aspirations. You always want to get it right. You always want to, see tangible next steps in whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need to exercise some patience as well. So setbacks and failures for me, the biggest learnings is around being kind to oneself and just trying to push through.
Mm.
Keep waking. Everyone always talks about this fact. It's like exercising. It's not about being the fastest runner in the world, but it's about waking up every day and just doing something.
And
Just be consistent at it, and you will see through some of the challenges.
yeah.
And the interesting thing around setbacks and challenges is that every time you're in it, it always seems insurmountable. And old people are the best. I just love old people because they've seen life so much that when you look at something and think it's the end of the world, they probably can reflect to moment in their life when things were like that. But with the benefit of hindsight and
Yeah,
experience, that actually wasn't that big, you know.
yeah,
So, and that's what I'm trying to learn in this year, that things can seem insurmountable, things can seem big, but through the passage of time, they're actually not as difficult as one might think they are.
yeah. But Thato, someone looks at you and looks at how you've risen to leadership so quickly. You now look after a huge brand within South Africa. But, and they want to have an understanding of, I mean, surely his life must be great. So what are some of those setbacks that you may have experienced actually in your career?
So you can name different points in one's career. You can name probably 2011, 2012, where you go, you are trying to study, trying to work, and it's not working out. And things are tough, and you have to then take a completely different turn in your career and go, am I willing to leave a dream that I was sort of trying to push 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 towards,
Yeah,
um, and try something completely different?
yeah,
Am I bold enough to take that step?
yeah.
And 2012, 2011, 2012, I left automotive actually for a stint of 2 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I went into
Into?
I went into ERP consulting, so I went
Okay.
and worked in IT
Wow.
for 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
it's
that's like,
ERP, and it was a complete shift, right? The complete shift from what I wanted to do in my career, but in looking back, it was actually a great move for me to do. Why? Because I got to experience different cultures, I got to understand systems a lot better, and I got to develop different skill sets that help me even today.
yeah,
So I can sit with in IT today, and I sort of, we can have a good conversation around systems, around implementations, projects, and so on and so on. So those skill sets help me over the period. Then you can go, I had a period in 2020, I think it was 2021. So
mm,
you're just feeling like, gee whiz, I've been so patient, but just I'm not getting to where I need to be.
mm,
And all of a sudden you look again a year or two later, you're actually where you wanted to be. But at a point you felt like giving up, isn't it?
yeah,
So those moments do hit you. And then you get into an environment and you do well, this, that, and the next. And then sometimes you have a bad period.
yeah,
Things don't go as planned in spite of all your great efforts.
yeah,
And it's about consistently showing up. And I've realized that the more difficult times that you face in one's life
mm,
are probably the times where you develop the best skill sets.
100,
Now, in my personal life, I mean, I sit today as a single father of two,
mm,
uh, having lost my wife last year, succumbed to illnesses. And those are difficult moments to try and raise children all by yourself, right? And that, your life gets turned on its head.
yeah,
And you go, how are you going to get through this? How do you start raising a 6 and 7 year old on your own? But we fast forward a year later, I'm raising it was a 5 and 6 year old at the time. Now it's a 6 and 7 year old, and
mm,
we are managing to get by, right?
yeah,
So these things happen in life, but you can choose to be succumbed by them and, just to succumb to them rather
mm,
and go, I've got this horrible that happened, and this is going to be the end of me.
yeah,
Or you can continue moving forward. Someone said to me, look, whether you like it or not, you are on this train called life,
yeah.
and it's moving.
Let's
You
move.
can't get off. You're on the train, so you're either gonna embrace the journey or you're gonna sit and complain about the journey all your life.
Yep, agreed, agreed. That's amazing. Thank you so much for that. So, Tato, what advice would you then give to somebody who's an aspiring leader that, like yourself, specifically within automotive? We know that we bring in a lot of young people who want to grow and go into leadership roles as well.
Yeah, so the biggest advice probably one can give someone is to move from a position of I am to a
Mm-hmm.
position of I can.
You can, okay.
Now, we always don't ever look at yourself in relation to where you are at that moment.
Yeah.
Look at yourself in relation to where you could be and make decisions based on that.
Okay.
Because if you do that, and I'll give you one or two examples
Yeah.
where you say, okay, I can be that person doing XYZ role, but
Yes.
what are the requirements for me to do it?
Mm-hmm.
It might mean taking a step back in your career to
Yeah.
go get to go build those skill sets that will get you to a specific spot. Life is not linear, but if we continue looking at life from this is what I am and I need to move in this direction, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So move into a position of I can and then be bold enough to make those decisions to go, for me to be good at that, maybe I need to move a little bit left here. I need
Yeah.
to move there and do this. I need to do that.
Yeah.
I need to maybe sit for 2 or 3 years
Yeah.
because you've got an end state. And I think that's just the advice I'd give. And don't think to be great in auto, you need to be a car. You don't. You need to have specific skill sets like any other business.
Yeah.
So people still box themselves and just thinking they need to be car people. I'm not a car person.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. So
I
you
like
don't
looking
need to
at
be a
them.
car person.
No, I like looking at them and driving them, but
Of
I'm
course.
not going to tell you what's the engine, this one, and that, that except the brands I sell, yes. But
Yeah.
in the middle, I'm not a car guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's okay, and
And
that's
it's
okay.
okay.
Yeah. Tato, we live in such a volatile, ever-changing world, When I think about the environment in which we work, I think every day is never the same. So how do you firstly stay on top of what you need to get done, but also how do you continuously adapt and embrace the change that we are continuously going through?
One, you got to get in the arena. Okay. So you always got to be in that arena, trying and, giving it your all. But it's important to have moments where you sit back and look at things.
Because what does it
Because
mean to
often,
get into the arena? Sorry.
sometimes when we see challenges, we try and avoid them.
Mm.
You go, oh,
Mm.
this environment is tough. This environment, this doesn't look like, something that I want to get involved in. You try and avoid
Okay,
tough challenges.
got you.
Sometimes you need to embrace them, get involved, get stuck, and then don't be afraid to go into an environment that's challenging.
Yeah,
Okay? Don't be afraid to go, oof, this feels hot. Get in there and try and give it your all.
yeah.
But what's important, I believe, as well, is never underestimate the importance of taking a step back and looking at your life outside of it. So some of the best decisions I've made hasn't been on a day-to-day running on the treadmill. It's when I
Mhm.
got off the treadmill.
Mm.
You get off the
So
treadmill
it's
and you
important
sit
that
back,
you actually just take a
look,
step back. Yeah.
and you assess. So sit back, look, and assess, and go. Hmm. If I was looking at this code independent, how would I move? If I wasn't involved in it, take yourself out of it. And for me, that's always sort of helped me during these difficult and tumultuous times, is to take yourself out of it, take a step back, and be able to look and go, what would be the right decision to make in this environment? Because oftentimes we feel like you're just running on this treadmill. Then there's a new thing. Then there's a new thing. Then you look again. You say, what is the direction?
Yeah.
And you know that direction you have to step out.
Yeah. Very, very true. Very, very true. Okay, so my last, I could speak to you until the cows come home. You speak about, and I know this is not about me, you speak about how sometimes for you to move forward, you've got to move back. I mean, I remember very briefly in terms of my own career, because I started specializing in just recruitment. I work for a recruitment company. But I soon realized that no, I'm not a specialist and I don't want to be a specialist. I like it,
Yeah.
get involved in a little bit of everything. And actually now in recruitment, you can actually earn a lot of money because every time you
Correct.
pay somebody, it's a lot of money. And I realized I was like, this is not where I want to actually stay and be stuck in. So I actually took a role to become an HR officer, which was more of a generalist role.
Yeah.
The salary cut was huge, but I was
Yeah.
young and I was like, for me, it's important that I make this decision today because I know what my future self wants, you know?
100%.
Yeah.
100. That is so important,
Yeah.
to be able to take those tough decisions because you've got a long-term future in mind.
Yeah.
And it's people always say it's easier to do it when you're young with less commitments.
Yeah.
But I think the conviction shouldn't stop you even when you're older with commitments
Yeah.
to say, can I reprioritize things in my life? Can I do this, that, and the next?
Yeah.
I've had people in our circles, C-suite, who
Mm.
literally got off the treadmill and said, I want to take a few months of a sabbatical. I want to take a few months off just to recalibrate, rethink, and I will do with less. Okay. It's fine. I'll reprioritize. I'll do with less.
Yeah.
But when they came back a very different type of individual
Yeah.
and were quite clear about the roles and paths in which they want to take. So never be afraid to uh, take those steps.
Yeah. To take that step back. 100%. All right. So my last question. So we don't always get along, especially in a work environment. And it's obviously important that we learn how do we navigate and manage conflict and resolving those disagreements. And what advice? So how do you navigate those when you really just don't agree with somebody? Um,
So, by nature, human beings get into conflict. We will never always agree. That's why even you sit in a government of a GNU that don't agree,
yeah. Oh,
even
and
your
it's about to fall
siblings.
apart.
We hope it stays together, but even as siblings, you fight. There's that older day that at Christmas you have a big Christmas lunch, and then in the evening we all tell each other how we upset each other the
I
last
know.
year,
I
because
know.
in this family we fight.
Yeah, true.
So I don't understand people who think that the workplace should be any different.
Yeah,
There will always be conflict
yeah,
because we are human beings. We
yeah.
two things
Mm.
being are golden rules. Never play the man
Never play the man, okay?
ever, especially in the workplace. Never ever play the man
Mm.
because I think once you cross that boundary and you start playing the man, that's when things get very ugly.
Mm. What do you play
Okay,
him for?
let everything always be about business and what's right for the business.
Yeah,
And in your decision making, again, take yourself out of it. Let's go. What is right for business?
yeah,
I'm also always convicted by that notion around is what we are doing or the viewpoint you're putting forward what you believe is the right thing for business, not the right thing for me.
yeah,
And once we can align on that, and maybe the right thing for business can maybe in this instance not be what I want
yeah,
or my viewpoint did. But if others go this, that, and the next is what's right,
yeah,
we need to be behind it and
yeah,
support each other.
yeah,
Important imperatives for me within the workplace to go, yes, we'll argue. We'll
yeah,
always argue. We'll
yeah,
always differ. We are human beings.
yeah,
But that's the man.
yeah. Awesome. Tato, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. I know you're in class, you're a lifelong student, but I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Cheers. Have a good
Cheers.
weekend.
It's,
Bye. Bye.